then
Felt
Thanksgiving
that.
happens.
Sometimes.
Oh, but let's go back because actually, Jaicey, before we go there, is that where you're going to go?
I don't know.
Can we back up?
Go ahead.
Because I really actually want to stop really fast because I want to talk about who you were before Thanksgiving Day. Because you were kind of on a life path. You were Jaicey Owens. You worked at Subaru. You were a 19-year-old working in a car dealership with a bunch of grown men, smacking down.
I had so much fun selling cars.
Huh?
I had so much fun selling cars.
I want you to share some of your jingles. You worked with a bunch of people. Give some of the names and the jingles that went with them because I think it's adorable.
My mom thinks this is adorable.
Give me like 5 names.
Brent, give it, Gibson. That was my general manager, the sales manager. And there was another guy there. He was one of my favorites. Neil the Deal. I had my people, and it was a really cool thing to work in car sales at a young age. And Subaru took me in, and I had a lot of really cool mentors there that saw like fire in me, and like I was open to learning, and I was open to exceeding their expectations and pushing my limits and making money. Like I made a lot of money at a dealership for 19 years old, and I'm not gonna lie, it bred a lot of bad spending habits at a young age because I had more money than I knew what to do with it. And
you were killing it at 19, and you had a goal to be the next finance manager. You were engaged to be married.
It was just like so much. It was just easy. I felt like I floated through the world of business. I was really great at communicating, and I didn't have to work as hard as the men because I think people trust women more than they trust men. And I had fun selling cars anyway, and people could see that. So it just kind of
transferred.
Yeah, it was just a lot of fun selling cars.
And then you were engaged also.
I was engaged.
You got your puppy Grizz.
And I had Grizz, and I had my own apartment, and I was just like...
Bought your brand new first car.
Yep, brand new first car. I was killing it.
You were killing it.
Working at Subaru, like that's where I was at. I had a lot of fun. I was around a lot of great people. I was really competitive, especially working with a bunch of men. Like I loved being competitive with men too, especially. Mm-hmm. And long story short, that's where I was working when Talon passed away.
So let's go into that. Let's start with Thanksgiving Day, because this is where I feel like the second significant part of Talon's legacy. I hate to call it that, but he did leave a legacy.
It's okay, Mom. It's okay, Mom. I love you, Mom.
So, it's Thanksgiving Day. And we're all supposed to be... I remember the day like it was yesterday. And you wanted your hair done that day. And I felt like it was the only day I was going to be able to do it because you worked at the dealership and we were having family pictures done. You were so busy. And we were having family pictures done, or we were going to have family pictures done because everybody was going to be in town. And I remember Talon wanted to drive out to Grandview, and he had just gotten his driver's license. I want to say like maybe 6 months before, huh?
He just paid off his car. I remember that he had just paid it off.
Yeah. He bought a
1998 Toyota Celica soft top convertible.
It was a cute car. It was cute. It was
a
handsome car.
Shift.
Yeah. I enjoyed teaching him how to drive that. But so he wanted to drive out to Grandview, and I just didn't feel good about it. Like, he hadn't driven long distances before. It was a holiday. I wasn't worried so much about his driving, although his driving was questionable at times. It was more I was worried about that it was a holiday, you know, people were going to be on the road that were drinking and driving. It really honestly was more of that than anything. But I also was kind of uncomfortable with the fact that he hadn't driven out to Grandview before. And, but he begged. He's like, Mom, I have a car. Like, there's no point in, huh?
I got this.
Yeah. He's like, I have a car. There's no point in Dad coming all the way to Boise to pick us up. I can drive me and the girls there. And I told him, I said, you know, just be careful. Don't speed, wear your seatbelt, all the mom things. Because that day, again, I just was feeling a little extra anxious. And I also remember, I talk about God nudges, and the only way I know how to explain them is it really is just an impression. And I remember looking at Talon that day, and I remember just this real strong impression of how handsome he was.
I almost wish that too.
I wish I would have taken a picture, because it really was a strong impression of just how strikingly handsome he was that day.
I remember that.
It makes me wonder if our spirit doesn't know when we're getting ready to exit, because he just had this glow about him.
Yeah.
And he was wearing this red shirt.
I remember that.
Yeah. And just so handsome. And he just kind of, you know, did pull this Talon thing on me and you know, buttered me up.
He finagles you?
He got his way. And I let him drive, and we're in the middle of doing your hair, and I
guess foils in my hair.
Foils all the way up your head, yeah. We had just put, I think we just
my hair
finished.
had not even been fully foiled yet. I don't even.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah, it wasn't fully foiled.
Because Sierra tried calling me and you, because they were heading out to Grandview. And they were running late because Tom made a stop at a friend's house before Thanksgiving, and then he passed the exit 2 times, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. So he was already like late. A half an hour late.
Yeah, because by the time I got the call, I thought that they were coming back from Grandview, because it really had felt like they had been gone that long.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had felt too, actually. And
so I get the call, and Sierra's on the phone. And
Nana answers the phone.
Oh.
And I remember, because Nana was like, Tawnia, you got to take the phone. It's your daughter. I can't handle this. They got into an accident. They can't find Talon. And, like, Nana was, like, crippled, like, tummy over, like, couldn't even, like, hold the phone. Like, and you were like, what? And in that moment, like, I was like, what the like, can I swear?
I mean, if you can hold the filter, because I'd have to. I mean, I get it. There are times when the F word is very appropriate, especially right after Talon's death. Do what you want.
I just remembered in that moment, like, I knew that it was bad. Like, I felt it, like, in my bones that it was bad. Like,
I was in denial. I think I was in denial, because she kept saying, I can't find Talon. And in my mind, I'm like, how do you not find, like, I'm literally thinking, did he get out of the car and go walk for help? Like, were the girls knocked out and they just don't know how much time? Like, I really couldn't comprehend what was going on when she kept telling me that they couldn't find Talon. The time, like, nothing was making sense about that conversation. How do you not find Talon? Anyways.
Because we didn't know that the car flipped. We didn't know that he was under the car.
Right. So the girls are, the car flips. Talon's driving out there. He's frantic because they're late. They've missed the exit twice. So he's going 80, a little over 80 miles per hour on Simcoe Road.
In a 45.
Yes,
Simcoe Road is 45 to 55 miles an hour, because it's a farm road. There's cow farms out there, and plus there's there's turns that you have to take at 45 miles an hour, and that's
There's one turn that's a 25, and I thought that was the one that he overcorrected on. I'm not sure, but there's at least one place I know of, two spots in one general area where if you're driving too fast, you come up on that curb pretty quick if you're not paying attention, and it's a very sharp curve. But Talon was going 80, and he hit a curve too fast, and he overcorrected and ended up flipping his car 3 times, and he wasn't wearing
over 100 yards. It's 100 yards, like close to 100 yards in the time that he flipped to the time that they landed.
So Talon was ejected from the car. It had rolled 3 times. In fact, Sierra, after the accident, you could even feel like some of the gravel still in her, like on her head. Her head was actually hitting the gravel, and she sustained a pretty severe concussion. She was down for about 2 months after the accident, and Grayson had a broken wrist, and yet concussed, Sierra ends up finding her brother and kneeling next to him and rubbing his cheek and staying with him.
Yeah, and they were 12 and 14 at the time, so they had to grow up really fast in that moment. Like
Grayson called 911, and then luckily their Aunt Sarah,
she was there that day too.
She was probably just about 5 minutes behind them. Luckily, they were all headed to the same place, and again, another divine intervention that she just happened to be just moments behind them.
Because she managed that situation like a boss. Like,
I bet she did.
So
Sarah's a boss. Sarah is a boss.
All the people it could have been in that moment, like, I'm glad that they had her, because I couldn't imagine.
I don't think it could have been anybody else. I really don't think it could have been anybody. Like I said, it was definitely a divine intervention. But yeah, so I didn't know what to do. I really wanted to drive out to Simcoe. I wanted to be with my son, but it was a 45-minute drive, and I knew it was serious, and I knew that if he had to be life flighted, I was going to miss him coming back. And so I was so stuck because I wanted so bad to drive. I wanted so bad to be there because I was so scared that he needed me and I wasn't going to be there. But I didn't want to move because I was afraid that if he had to be life flighted, that I would miss him on the way back.
It's okay, Mom.
And I was so stuck, and it was the worst. I had actually quit smoking at that point for 10 days, and I literally had waited hours and hours waiting for, what is going on. And finally, maybe it wasn't hours. It probably was moments, but it was a lot of moments. I remember that. I ended up smoking because I could not handle. Oh, just that was such a horrible.
As a kid, that's a hard thing to watch your parents go through too. Like,
it was so hard because that was too far from home, and it took them forever. They kept getting his heart would stop, and they couldn't stabilize him enough to actually get him to be able to life flight him. And they won't life flight you if you're not stable.
Ambulance.
Huh?
They couldn't get him stable enough to put him in the ambulance. That's why they sent a helicopter.
Oh, I don't know. That wasn't how I heard it, but it doesn't matter. Either way, it was forever.
The ambulance got there. The ambulance from Mountain Home.
He was life flighted, honey. He ended up being life flighted.
Huh? He was life flighted because they couldn't take him in an ambulance.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so it ended up that it was an hour and a half before they actually got to the hospital. And that was frustrating because I just kept thinking if they get him to the hospital, he'll be fine. I knew that if they could just get him to the hospital, he was going to be fine. No matter what, the hospital was going to save him. Like, that was my belief. My belief in the hospital was so powerful because in my mind, it literally was life or death. If they got him there, he was going to live. If they didn't get him there, he was. And so it was just the longest hour and a half. And I was so frustrated and so mad because I felt like they killed my kid. I literally felt like them taking as long as they did cost Talon his life. And it was so long before even the very first person showed up at the scene. And it was so long before even the ambulance showed up at the scene. And then it was so long before Life Flight showed up. And it was Thanksgiving Day.
Nowhere. It's like a 45-minute drive to that place from any nearby city, too. Like, that's from Mountain Home to that place, or from Boise to
for perspective, just for perspective reasons, an hour and a half for Life Flight, if Life Flight had left immediately, and I'm just saying, in my mind, a mother, I'm thinking Life Flight could have gotten there in 15 minutes and back in 15 minutes, and it's an hour and a half, and my son is still not at the hospital. Like, I couldn't comprehend, why is my son not at the hospital? Like, I knew it was serious. But he gets there, and I wasn't allowed in the trauma bay at all until they got him, I guess, hooked up or stabilized or whatever. And my ex-husband comes out and gets me, and he's walking me back to the trauma bay. And
my dad flew in the helicopter with him from the accident site.
Yeah, they were on their way out to their dad's house, and so their dad was with him. Thank goodness. I know that was instrumental in Talon hanging on as long as he did. I have no doubt in my mind that I think if it wasn't for Jason being there, I don't know that Talon would have held on as long as he did. And I'm grateful for that, because I do believe that Talon really, really held on so that I could say goodbye. I believe that. I don't think he wanted me to.
It's okay, Mom.
Not have that opportunity. So we're walking back to the trauma bay, and Jason sternly looks at me, very sternly. And he says, "Do not scream and do not freak out, or they're going to kick us out." And he said it just like that.
I didn't know that.
Oh, he did. I was so mad because I
could see that, though. I could see that happening, because I could see you, like,
freaking out. Apparently he could too, because I walk in, and it was the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. But there was just so many doctors and nurses. I remember just feeling overwhelmed with the presence of doctors and nurses. If I had to guess, I would say there was probably 12 or more. And I see my son, and he is completely naked, and he is barely draped, and he has hoses that are, I mean, probably the size of a garden hose. I'm sorry, Jaicey. I can stop.
You should trigger warning. You should trigger warning before talking about stuff like that too.
I'm sorry, honey.
It's a lot.
I know.
That's hard, Mom. I'm sorry you had to see that. That's really hard. I'm really sorry you had to see that.
So I walk back there, and I see everything that's going on. And
remember, I wanted to go back there, and you were like, "No."
I didn't want. I remember the very last memory of my grandfather, who was my favorite grandfather ever. I love the man. And I remember seeing him before he passed away, and he had a stroke, and he'd lost a bunch of weight, and he just did not look like himself. And I still have that vision of my grandfather in my head, and it's a vision I don't like, because it's not my grandpa. It's not who he was. It wasn't the vital, joyful grandpa that I was close to. And so it was kind of the same response, was like, I didn't want you guys to have that image, just like I didn't want Nana to have that image, that exact flashback that you would see, anytime, that very last memory. I just didn't want that to be that. But when I walk in and I'm seeing all this, I just remember feeling paralyzed, because Jason's yelled at me before we walked in. Not really, he doesn't, but he was very stern, because he by all means didn't want me to freak out, and didn't want to probably, he wanted to have the support in that trauma bay for our son. And I think he was just basically,
he was looking out.
Huh?
He was looking out
Yeah. And so I just literally went over and I went to the back of the room because I knew that there was so much going on, and I knew I didn't want to be in the way because they were trying to save him. That I went to the back of the room, and there was a man there, and I think he might have been a preacher, or he might have been some sort of hospital support. He seemed like he was definitely there for emotional support or something of that nature, and he just sat next to me. I feel like he held my hand. I don't really quite remember, but he just sat there and talked to me the whole time as I'm, just praying. I remember just sitting there like this the whole time, and I just couldn't keep my eyes off of what was going on because I just was praying for a miracle. I was just like, I was just praying that something would things would just start happening, and good things would start happening, and it just wasn't happening. I remember your dad just did not want to let him go, and I didn't either, but I mean, they literally had told us so many times, like 3 times, that there was nothing that they could do because his heart was not stable enough to go in to have surgery.
That was a hard thing for me to process too, for days, for weeks after Talon passed away. I also felt that. Like, I felt that the hospital killed him. Like, I held a lot of anger towards the hospital for not being good enough to save him. Like, I felt like there was nothing he could have done that could, like, there's nothing that could have happened that could have destroyed him, because in my mind, like, he was invincible. And, like, God got us. Like we deserve miracles. Like, and so it was a very frustrating. It was a lot that I had to release emotionally towards, like, I was triggered to, like, I'm still triggered to go past St. Alphonsus. That's a hard one for me.
It is. And I really believe that hospital did everything that they could. I don't hold any malice at all. It just, in the moment, it's a lot. It's a lot to comprehend how to fix them, and finally I just told Jason, I said, it's time. Like, we have to let him go. And it's the hardest thing to say, because they absolutely won't stop CPR. They won't stop trying to save you unless you. And I actually had to go pray about it first. I went out to the hallway and I just said, don't make me choose. Like, I did not want to choose. I didn't want to be the person that said, take him off life support or keep him on. I wanted God to choose. I wanted God to take that choice from me, because that was something that I did not want to have to live with. And I just said, if he's supposed to live, just give him a heartbeat. Give him a strong heartbeat that won't stop. And when I went in, and they had turned on a pacemaker to keep his heart going. And I had said to them, I said, if you turn it off, what happens? And they said, his heart will stop. And I knew that they couldn't take him into the OR without his heart beating on its own. And so I just knew that was God's way of saying, this is a machine now that's doing it. And if we turn it off, it's stopping. And I just knew that was my sign. And I told you, and he had a hard time. Jason really had a hard time. And I mean, we both did, but he was not gonna, he wanted to tell them to stop ever. And I understand that sentiment too. But he finally agreed to, and then it was, how are we gonna tell our girls?
Never gonna forget that moment.
It was the hardest.
I felt like I experienced that moment like a million times in my life, because I heard it first from the doctor, because there was like 12 of us who were supposed to be at Thanksgiving who were in room 19. And then there was, like, this is our whole family. Like, people don't understand, like, the totality of the layers of trauma that came from this event, because our whole family was there Thanksgiving Day in those rooms rooting for him to survive. And then nobody had Thanksgiving that night. Actually, we went back and had cold Thanksgiving. We had cold Thanksgiving. And we were planning a funeral. Like, it's everybody's worst nightmare. And I experienced it like the first time when the doctor came in and told me. And I remember that when I heard it, I literally just like dropped. And I was like, no. And it was that same, like, it felt like my heart tore and my throat tore and my head tore. Like, I feel like I hold my trauma in like this part of my body because I know when I'm triggered, like I feel it, like it's a stabbing pain like through this median of my body. And it's still something I'm working through, but I remember that first initial like no. And it was like I was cursing God, like no. And I like pushed everyone off of me, and I ran out front. Of the hospital, and Grandma Teresa was walking up with Grandpa David, and I couldn't even like process it. I was just like, he's dead. And Grandma's like, what? Like, spoiler alert, like, he's dead. He's dead. And Grandma said that same thing that Dad said when I told him the first time. She's like, that's not right. That's not right. You're not supposed to outlive your grandbabies. And Grandma and I cried together in front of the hospital, and it was really hard because it was like, and like when you lose someone so tragically, like everyone wants to know about it too. Like I feel like I just need to put it out there, like on the subject, like let people talk about their trauma. Like don't introduce them as their trauma. Like don't like give people the option to talk about their trauma, because there have been times where I'm like minding my business in my normal life and somebody has to like come up and like ask me how it happened or how everyone's doing. And for a while, like nobody was doing okay, like
Right.
for a really long while. And I had to
It wasn't
be
until
like,
recently, really,
fine.
that we started, huh?
Like I had to just like lie for a really long time, which was hard, and be like, everything's fine, everyone's doing great. But really, everyone was like still freaking out for a really long time, like up until recently. Like this year, at the beginning of this year, something that I wrote in my love journal was, I feel confident that this year is like the first year where I felt that everyone had gotten better. Like it was better. Everyone's better this year than they were last year. Like before that, like that was not a collective, thing that all of us were doing better. Like the year before that was Sierra's accident. The year before that was the first year after. Like it was like so much like going into, there's just so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. What
that
was
like
that?
threw me through a mind.
I know. Me too. Like I got all super like foggy all of a sudden
Isn't that weird how that happens?
Because I think it's because when you get triggered, you go into the disassociation mindset.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what happens to me. I have to constantly like focus and bring myself back and go, okay, wait, where was I at? Because I just totally disassociated.
Yeah.
I literally lost 20 minutes the other day. I was supposed to go get something for somebody out of a room, and literally 20 minutes passed because I got triggered, and then all of a sudden the person had stopped by and I'd left, like I'd missed them, and they told me that they'd stopped by, and I'm like, wait, how did I miss you? Like I literally thought I had just went up to and somehow I lost 20 minutes. It was so bizarre. And I don't mean it like, like I blacked out and I was unaware of what was going on. But when you disassociate...
No, like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, let's talk about it. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, it's a real mental illness. And like I had to dig into this mental illness because I didn't want to admit that I have post-traumatic stress disorder when I very, very much do. I very much do. And I'm also building relationships with my family who also are healing from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a trial and tribulation within itself. Is like, how do we all heal each other while also all deal with each other and give grace to each other? Everything becomes white noise. Like my ears will ring, my throat will close up, like I can't focus, my like language becomes hard to interpret and hard to communicate, my short-term memory, my long-term memory, and it's random. And I have to like sit within myself and be like, yep, that's how I feel right now, so just feel it, because those feelings are just so right there, like in the front of your mind. And like, this is actually how I cope. It was something that Papa taught me, was when it was when Makai and I broke up. It was my first heartbreak when I was 15. And I was like crying in my car, and Papa came out to the car with me, and he like sat in the car with me. He's like, I'm not going to tell you that this pain is going to go away, because it's not. But what you need to do is take this pain and put it in the back of your brain where you can visit it when you want to. That way it's not on the front of your mind all the time, because you cannot move on in life with this pain in the front of your mind. You need to focus, and you need to be present right now. And when he told me that, I was 16 years old, and I carried that with me. And to this day, like, this is my own personal practice of dealing with my things. I get triggered, I process it as a trigger, and I'm like, and it's like right here, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna deal with that on Friday. And on Fridays, I have like 20 minutes where I like freak out, like really freak out, Mom. Like, I will have a full-on mental breakdown if I need to. I'll meditate if I need to. I'll cry if I need to. But I've been really trying to focus on how I show up as a partner, how I show up as a sister, how I show up as a daughter, how I show up as family, how I show up as a friend. You know, like, I can't show up as that role in my people's life if I'm blinded by my own trauma. And so taking that time to freak out has helped me a lot, because I can get to it, and I budgeted the time in to do it. So that's been...
I think that's really good that you are self-aware to do that. And I think that's a huge part of healing, is being self-aware. Huge part of healing, because you have to be able to say and be accountable for your state of mind. Not that everybody, you know, there's certain times when you can't be, but there's definitely times in your life when you can clearly make a choice. Yeah, you have to, I'm proud of you for being self-aware, because you do, like, I know in my own personal situation, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I would say it's pretty generally true. And most people that have dealt with depression, trauma, major life trials, circumstances, who are thriving and surviving now and finding joy and happiness after trauma and PTSD and trials, the common theme is that they are making a choice every day to do steps that lead to joy, thankfulness, gratitude, blessings, happiness, service, paying it forward, all choices that bring your mental state of mind to a positive place. So again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I will say, generally speaking, when you talk to people who are finding joy and happiness, they're all going to tell you that they are choosing consciously to do things, habits, create habits, rituals, whatever, that are going to create peace, joy, healing, and happiness in your life. Jaicey, did you bring your love journal?
I did.
So we're going to talk about love journals because this is huge. This was a big, huge part of Jaicey's healing. And I think it's something that I would love to work with her on. I've talked to her briefly about it, but I think me and her should create one that she can put up on Hope Brokers and share, because it's been detrimental to her healing. I will tell you that every person that I have spoke to that is involved with some sort of healing will tell you that gratitude journals, love journals, I've never heard it called a love journal, but this would fall in line with it. Thankfulness journals, journals in general, writing down things that are going to enhance your life in a positive way is a habit that people who are successful in every aspect of their lives do. Mm-hmm. So, Jaicey, let's talk about your love journal.
Let's see. So, my love journal was inspired by a few different ways. Specifically, there was this song that really strung a chord in my heart, called Thank You by Bombadil, and one of the lines in it is, take everyone you love and write them down. You might not want to tell all of them because that can weird some people out, but let them know you care somehow. And like every time that part he sang that part, like I would literally like almost start crying, because I feel like I do have so much love, but like my kind of I love extremely hard, and like maybe it could like weird people out, like if everyone knew all the time how much I loved them.
You get that from me.
You know, like, so I was like, you know what, I do need to just like, and at the time I was stuck in, it's really weird because when you get stuck in grief, like you forget a lot of things. You forget what day it is, you forget what conversations you've had or not had. And I was getting really stuck in this depression and in this like anger, and I was having a really hard time getting out of it because I was forgetting every single day. Like I couldn't even remember the day before. I couldn't even remember the morning of. Like I was literally just like coasting in this fog. And I was just listening to really good music, and I was meditating, and I was trying everything I could holistically to help myself, because I didn't want to go to a doctor. I was like, figure it out yourself. You could do this. Like, it's time. And so I started with this love journal. And this is the very first page of my love journal. And this is what inspired it. And that's my brother.
I love that picture.
Isn't he so handsome? Oh my God. And there's all sorts of different things in here, from moments where I felt the happiest to like journaling what I was doing in that moment that I was enjoying, to my favorite quotes, to conspiracies, to predictions, to
goals, accomplishments, things you love about yourself.
You want to know something? Let's see if I can find it. May 16th, 2018, 4:53 p.m. My life goal is to go to school to get my massage therapy license and get really good at it and apply it to my healing energy work. That was like almost 3 years ago. That was 2.5 years ago.
And now what?
And now, you know, a lot happened in between now and then, but like that's in like 2.5 years of journaling. That's from this point of my life. Well, can you see it? From like this point in my life to like all this later, here I am with the next part of my goal. It's just nuts. You know, I have a fully built clientele. Like my clientele is completely booked. I'm to the point in my career now where I could cut back the days that I'm working.
And you work at a very high-end salon.
I work at the greatest salon in Boise. I've learned
you really
a lot. I've learned, there's a lot that I've learned from Graeber and Company and
You have the
from,
best mentors, I think, in the industry, if I'm
I
being honest,
really
because
do.
they are very down to earth. They are very, how do I say it, relationship oriented, but they're also very business minded. So they have
Personal
a really
development and
good,
professional development is like the two things that they focus a lot on. Like there's a page in here where we were brainstorming what our code of honor was going to be as a company. And I was like, dang, like I want this to be my code of honor, you know? Like that's powerful to sit down like as a company all together and be like, what is our code of honor?
I've been
And
really impressed. And I will be honest, I will say, absolutely, I would attribute a lot of your healing to the mentors that you have at Graeber. I think a lot of it was,
100%. A lot
yeah,
of
I
it
think
was Amber, Shelby, Sydney, like that accountability, having accountability within your business too, to want everyone on your team to be as successful as you are. Like it really shows in the
mm-hmm.
quality of people that they bring in and the people that they let in, and I admire that. Like we only let the highest quality of people in because those people that are like-minded like that will take all of this. Like I have so many pages in here of like my personal core values and team core values and like self growth, and there's just a lot. And like the reason it's been so incredible looking back on my love journal and seeing things that I've proudly accomplished, and also things where like I look back on it and I'm like, I haven't done that yet. Maybe it's time to do that, because I wanted to get more in touch with the musical side of me. And
Me too.
I saw that in my love journal, and I'm like, well, I'm ready to get myself an instrument. Let's try a new instrument. And I was like, ukulele. Let's try ukulele. And then I got you a ukulele. And
I
then
know,
I
I'm
got Jake a
excited to try it.
ukulele.
So excited to try
And
it.
yeah, you gotta give it a go. Ukulele is so easy, Mom. You would really enjoy it. I
I'm
think you
going
would
to.
really. Mm-hmm.
So I know that you have to go, but I want to say a couple things. Um, One, I'm super proud of you. Very proud of you. I am. Um, I know that you kind of had to do a lot of it on your own, you know. I think the best analogy I've ever heard about grief is, especially when losing a child, they say, it feels like you're being swallowed up by a really huge ocean and that their waves are raging around you. And the waves are high and the whole ocean is rocking and everything around you is scary and it's dark and it's raining and it's cloudy and it's stormy. And you see other people in the ocean and they're struggling. You see your kids. This is how I would describe it. I see my kids out there and they're struggling and I can't even, I'm trying to save myself in my own boat and I can see them struggling. And it's the hardest thing to experience as a parent because you just can't, like, you can see that your kids are struggling, but you just don't have the capacity. And it doesn't excuse anything because it definitely feel.
I love you, and I don't ever want you to feel like I have resentment towards you for any of that, because I respond to trauma with intense independence. Like this is also what I needed. Like I knew that it had to be me. That it had to be me to heal me. I knew that it had to be you to heal you. I knew that the common denominator is that we went through this together, but we're not going to be going through it the same way or at the same pace. That's what I learned early was I can't, like, I wanted to be there for you as much as you wanted to be there for me.
It's hard.
Like it is a hard thing because how do I tell you it's going to get lighter when you're not there yet? One day
You
it gets a
can't.
little lighter. You can't.
Yeah.
Because until that day, like what you feel is real. It's always going to be real. And pain is relative and trauma is relative. And everyone experiences it all differently. But you have, like, going through this amount of pain has opened up a whole new level of empathy and emotions that I had not known before. And
I'm
it's
so glad you.
connected me. It's connected me to a lot of people who needed to know that they were not alone in feeling these things, because there aren't a lot of resources out there for dealing with grief. When it's one thing we know is definitive, like, we're all going to experience some sort of grief in our life. There's such a huge amount of us who are traumatized. Like, we just need to treat the whole world like it's traumatized, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Right. If we started talking to everybody
sad.
like they just underwent the most trauma of their life, can you imagine how much better the world would be if we were that gentle with, I mean, not that we have to like, be that gentle, but can we just be so much kinder to people and just be compassionate? And I agree. I would say, I think for me, because Talon's death, it's like, how do you, I still can't reconcile, but I know that on the opposite side of extreme pain, when you talk about how it just encompasses, like you feel it all up here. I remember describing pain, and it's just so physical, that the grief that you feel and the pain. And I just want to say I love you and I am proud of you, and you've done a lot of healing, and I'm grateful. You're right. When you go through, some people just, you have to go through it alone. You have to heal on your own. And I think that's one thing with grief and with trauma, is that sometimes you have to take matters into your own hand and just start finding those little things, whether it's music, we're love journal and music, Jaicey. I think both of those are beautiful sentiments. I think a love journal is a good thing for people to start, and I'm grateful that you brought that up, as well as music. I think music puts us in a good mood and puts us in a better place. Thank you for coming on, Jaicey. I'm so proud of you. You've grown so much and come so far, and we have strong women in our family, and it's apparent through my girls. I feel like that for sure, and I know I have a long upward line of strong women that I'm grateful for. I appreciate you. We'll do this again, and I love you so much.
Mom.
Enjoy your day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye, Mom.